Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I am the president of the KMT2B Dystonia Foundation, mother to three. My youngest son is Max, and he has KMT2B gene mutation. I met Lynn through the Dystonia Foundation, and our kids shared gene mutation.
My name is Lynn, and I am the mom of two girls. My youngest daughter, June, also has the KMT2B gene mutation. We got diagnosed with June's condition when she was 6.5. And that first year, we were pretty alone and isolated. No one that we knew of in the US had this. Everything on the internet was scary, outdated. Nothing seemed to align with one report to the next. And so it was a pretty awful, dark year for my family. And then one afternoon, I was at work and I got an email, and it was from a mom in Arizona, so stateside, who reached out and said her son had this same mutation. And we started corresponding. And I was really hesitant at first because I wasn't sure who she was or what kind of background she had. But then she decided to give me a phone call, and so I heard her voice and I knew she was going to be my friend. And that's how Elizabeth and I met. And we became fast friends. I've never met her, but we talk more than I sometimes talk to my own family during the week,
Without a doubt.
without a doubt. And it was Elizabeth who called. We probably had been talking for almost a year, I think, Elizabeth, maybe.
Yeah.
And it was in the fall that she had called and she said, Lynn, I think we need to start a foundation. We're not getting anywhere, just mom in the West Coast and me in the Midwest. And so I said, you're right. And so Elizabeth had the idea to start the foundation and then really just hit the ground running. And I followed suit. And so I am the vice president. And here we are today.
Yeah, sure. So when Max was two, right, really around his second birthday, he started to lose speech. So I had just got back to work and noticed he wasn't talking as much. So we got him evaluated, and they told us it was probably just him adjusting to me going back to work. And within the next 3 months, he lost pretty much all expressive and receptive language. So we took him in for an evaluation with a developmental pediatrician, and they told us they were pretty certain he had autism. It just didn't fit right with me because he had been developmentally on track and he lost his language so quickly. I just felt like there was something more. So I advocated with the doctor to do some further testing. They agreed to do genetic screening. They did first a smaller portion of genetic screening and it came back with nothing. So we agreed to do the full scale gene testing, and that's where we learned of the KMT2B gene mutation for him. So he actually didn't have dystonia at the time. It was all developmental issues that was going on and regression. Looking back, I had intrauterine growth restriction. He did in utero, and we did not know why. But then he developed typically the first 2 years of his life. So that was like our only really kind of hint that there was something going on pre the regression. And so, I mean, I spent hours and hours and hours online searching, and nothing led me to even think it was KMT2B because everything online really with KMT2B is related to dystonia. But at that time, he didn't have any dystonia, and still to this day, he doesn't really have it. He's had one episode in his hands that lasted a couple weeks, but has since gone away. So for Max, it's mainly developmental issues that led us to get testing for genetic screening. What about you, for you, Lynn?
Yes, so for June, she was typically developing from birth. She did have a speech delay, but many kids do, so we didn't think much about that. And she was still making gains and hitting her goals. For June, it wasn't until, like I said, she was 6.5. And that fall, she even ran cross country. But by the winter time, she stopped running and was doing this funny gallop. We live in Ohio, so we just thought, well, she's not running in the house because it's winter outside. And we didn't really think much of it. And then springtime hit, and the teacher started noticing that she was playing tag less and less, and that she started to fall quite a bit when she was running on the playground. And that got us nervous. So we took her to the pediatrician who ran tests, and they all came back normal. We had x-rays done. They were normal. We went to physical medicine. We went to every specialist. They sent us up to U of M because they couldn't figure out what was happening here. We did a full body CT scan when she was not even 7, and it came back normal. And that's when they decided to send us to genetics. And that's when we got the diagnosis of KMT2B dystonia. So, and since then, it is a progressive disease. And so June's gait is changing. Before it was really when she would just run, but now it's in her walk. And it's starting to impact her hands a bit as well. So we see it in her handwriting is regressing. But developmentally, she's still in a general ed class, and it's hard for her, but she works hard. So for June, currently, it is a motor issue that is progressing.
So for a typical day for Max, and June's probably pretty different. Max is a wild child and he needs constant movement. So for us and the challenges that we face with Max, it's just keeping him safe because he doesn't have as much concern for his own safety as I do for him. So he loves to climb and jump and run, and he's busy from the second he wakes up till the second he goes to sleep. We did do some testing. We did nasal swabs with Unravel Bioscience, both for June and for Max. And one thing that came out of that was that we realized his circadian rhythm is just out of sync, likely due to his gene mutation. So for Max, he just has the hardest time sleeping. And once he falls asleep, he doesn't always stay asleep. So he'll sleep for 2 hours and then he'll be awake for 3 hours and he'll go back to sleep for 2 hours. That's obviously been a challenge for him, but also for us as his caretakers. And we live in a very rural area in Arizona. So finding supports for him has been challenging. We do have a fantastic team and our school system's been so helpful. Max is in special education. He does need an IEP. He's entering into kindergarten. He's still completely nonverbal. He does have a communication device that we utilize, but none of his speech has returned at this point. And then he still just has challenges with sensory issues. He needs lots of input, proprioceptive input. He needs deep pressure. And so he's constantly seeking those things out, which can make it challenging just to keep him in a safe area. What's it like for June?
Right. So for June, it does seem to be that this gene, even though we have the same gene mutation, our symptoms are quite different, right? So for June, she fatigues very quickly, and that's her biggest issue. Like I said, it's in her walk and it's in her hands. So we have assistive devices going forward in her school setting. She'll have the talk to text app for her handwriting. She is also on an IEP or an education plan in her school. And we do a lot of physical therapies for her. She's in hippotherapy with her horse. She does therapeutic karate and she does therapeutic swim. So she fights like a girl, and that means she's pretty tough, which I'm proud of her. But yeah, so the fatigue is really her biggest concern. And when you're a child on a playground, that's really hard because that's where you make your friends, is by running and jumping and playing and doing all the things that you do on a playground. And we're struggling with that and just trying to figure out how she finds her sense of belonging and what she can do. So we talk about that a lot at home.
Right. Lynn, you want to go first?
Yeah, so this gene, KMT2B, wasn't discovered until 2016. So we're not even on the 10-year mark that the disease has been recognized by clinicians. So June was born in 2015. Even if there had been something going on, they wouldn't have been able to diagnose it because she was a year before they had figured out that this was the root of her issues. So I'm not quite sure. Can you repeat right? So I Googled and researched everything. I was reaching out to every doctor that I could. I reached out to every big hospital in the US, in Europe. I was even looking into China and third world countries and anything. I was checking globally what there was to do to fix this, and there's no fix to this. There is the Dystonia Foundation, which is an organization for all types of dystonia, but KMT2B, this gene mutation, is considered ultra rare, and so they didn't really have an arm of support for us either. So I really was just spiraling, looking for answers by myself until I met Elizabeth. I will say that my June's neurologist from the University of Cincinnati, Dr. Gilbert, is amazing. He was one of the first people who I emailed, and he emailed back a personal message. He was going to be part of June's team. And so I'm super fortunate that he's in my state, only a few hours away. So I did have him and the University of Cincinnati, who has a dystonia arm, or I'm not sure what the word is I'm looking for. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
the branch of dystonia is at the Cincinnati Children's does have that. So I didn't find any of these resources until I met Elizabeth.
Yeah. So Max was diagnosed right before his third birthday, and we were lucky in the sense that the genetic counselor that delivered the results to us already had called and scheduled us an appointment with the movement disorder neurologist at Phoenix Children's Hospital for the next day. And that like saved my life because like Lynn, I spiraled very quickly after anytime I think back, it was just so hard. After getting his diagnosis, it was just really tough. So thankfully, we got with Dr. Kruer at Phoenix Children's Hospital here in Arizona. And at that point, he had treated one other KMT patient prior to seeing Max. So he had some background knowledge. But also, like Lynn, I started reaching out to anyone and everyone, like every person in my close family and friends, looking for any connections. I emailed every neurologist I could find, anyone that had any connection to dystonia or KMT2B. I reached out to. There is a KMT2B community page on Facebook that I joined that had some great information that was really helpful. And some families across the world are on there. So those connections were great. And then through my lots of emails, I was able to make some connections with some people that are doing work for the Rare Village or Rare Disease World. Unravel, Dr. Novak at Unravel has been really a great person to join our team. So I had reached out to the Dystonia Foundation, just like Lynn, and they didn't have anything really for KMT2B, but they did say, hey, we know another mom who has reached out to us. Let me connect you to. And so at that point, I had already spoken to Unravel Bioscience, and I asked Lynn once we first started talking, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we're thinking of doing. So we joined in there. And in the last year, while we've been working on this foundation, we've just dived deep into the rare disease world. And there's a lot of wonderful people out there working really hard for their rare diseases and a lot of foundations that are set up to support. And so we've been able to connect with Combined Brain. We're working to make connections with the National Organization of Rare Disease and NORD. And it gives us some hope that there's things that we can do. We don't just have to kind of wait around and see what happens with our kids. We can put in the time and the effort and try everything in our power to find answers. And that's why we did the foundation, because I'm advocating as fiercely as I can for Max, and Lynn is advocating as fiercely as she can for June. But we know that if we come together and we bring in the rest of our KMT2B community, our voices are going to be a lot louder. We're going to get a lot.
I think it's really great that our foundation has several tangible goals so we can tell the community what we're doing and what we're advocating for and what we're trying to reach. The first major goal that the foundation is working towards is creating a patient registry through the National Organization of Rare Diseases, or NORD is the acronym that the rare disease world knows it as. They are well known, well respected, and by creating this patient registry that will be secure through the NORD website, our families and families that haven't been diagnosed yet will be able to go into this registry system to record their data. And the more families that we can get connected to join this registry, the more power we have when it comes to finding the right clinician to do a case study for us, to take it to the farmer world, to say, hey, we are a community of people who need help and need therapeutics to make our lives easier for our children and our even adults that have this disease. So power is in numbers when it comes to rare diseases, and that secured patient registry is the first thing that we need to do.
Yeah, so our foundation, we have 5 board members. We have a social media director. We have someone who's going to lead our patient registry. We have a medical advisory board we're getting set. And everybody is doing this completely free. Not We're not taking a single dollar from what we're going to raise for the foundation. We do have a goal of raising $50,000 for the first year. That's going to go towards patient registry fees for filing, for creating the foundation. It's going to go towards raising awareness for KMT2B, so that way when people like Lynn and I are trying to search what's going on with our child, there's information out there. I had no idea. KMT2B never even popped up in all of my searches, and we don't want parents to be as lost as we were when you're trying to figure out what's going on with your child. And we want also clinicians to have a better understanding of what to look for KMT2B, so they know to send children or adults with these symptoms to go get the genetic screening to see if that is what's going on with them. And so that's what our $50,000 for year one is going to go to. And that's our first big goal.
Yep. The patient registry itself is a $20,000 first year fee to get secured on their website, plus additional fees that go along with that, because KMT2B does not discriminate. It is a worldwide problem for young babies that have this, and children and adults. So we need to make sure that that patient registry is multilingual for families across the globe that have it. So there's lots of fees that go on with all of those, because we need to make sure all families around the world can get to this site to create one registry for us. Well, so when I was diagnosed, when June was diagnosed, we were told that she was probably one of 80 worldwide that had this 80, but then Elizabeth was a year later. And
I think they told me that Max was like 38th in the world. So clearly there's not data available that's actually tracking how many KMT2B patients there are. And that's one major obstacle we have to overcome to be able to get researchers interested in our families and our kids, because we can't even tell them, we can't even present, hey, we have this big of a community that we want you to look into, because there's no true data that we can refer to at this point.
And we do know that the data is incorrect, because in the last year, just the two of us alone have come in contact with at least 10 other moms that are stateside that have this, some in Ohio, some out west where Elizabeth is. And then our clinicians have children that are being treated. So then there's nowhere to report a number. And if you don't have a support or a reason to report, I think it's completely skewed with how many people are being affected by this gene mutation.
Every single thing with KMT2B scares me. Everything. What scares me the most is doing nothing. So we were able to get a list of medications through our studies with Unravel Bioscience that we took to our clinicians. And for Max, I truly trust his clinician. So he was able to look through the data. He was able to meet with the research team at Unravel. And we were able to come up with medications that were safe for him to try. But again, Max is likely the only person in the world on that medication with his diagnosis. So it is scary. We collect blind data, so we don't tell our occupational therapist or speech therapist what medication he's on or when he's on medication, and we're collecting data on his goals and if he's making any progress on them. Is he attaining to tasks any longer than he was before? Those sorts of things to take back. But it is hard when he's the only one. I wish that this was done, that we had, our foundation was established 20 years ago and there was already answers 50 years ago, but it's so new. And everyone that's been on this journey before us have been, facing challenges with their child with a brand new diagnosis and doing what they could for their own child. So I think I'm happy to be where we are today. I think we made a lot of progress already, but it's terrifying. Everything is terrifying to me.
I agree. When you read about KMT2B, there's nothing easy about this diagnosis. The scariest thing that I had heard in the very beginning was from our neurologist, and he had said that the genetic testing world has come leaps and bounds in the last 15 years, but the medicines to treat dystonia haven't moved the mark at all. So they're using archaic medicines. Nothing new has been put on the market for our kids or people that have this. So Unravel Bioscience, to have a group of people that are geniuses using their AI system and their brains to figure out what possible therapeutics that are current market that we can repurpose is a game changer, because it gave Elizabeth a stack of drugs that we could potentially try to take to our neurologist, to our pediatrician. And we went through it. And, for June, looking at what might work for her, we went through the pros and the cons of each one and what we were willing to risk and what we weren't willing to risk for her. And so we're trying something, we're doing something. The worst thing is that this disease, they don't know when it's going to stop. They don't know how bad it's going to get. So it's like a ticking time bomb that we're waiting it's a horrible place to sit when you don't know how bad it can be. So having data and research and the support from Unravel and our neurologists and Combined Brain, these organizations that are helping people like us find avenues to try, it does bring hope. And you need that when you have this diagnosis.
Mhm.
I think you have to say, trust your mom gut, and no one's going to fight for your child more than you, right?
So originally, like, we were told our son has autism, and that was it. Like, they were sending us out the door. Okay, have a great day. And I just knew that there was more to it. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I know my kid. And so they brought in a second clinician, and we went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, to the point where they were like, fine, if it'll get you to stop arguing with me, we'll do genetic testing. Like, just to get you to be quiet. But they told me I'm 100% certain it's autism. But if that's what you want, fine, we'll do it. And so just don't let, like, we have wonderful experts and we want to trust them, but you also have to be willing to stand up and push for what your child needs. And it's hard to know sometimes, if that's what you should do. Because when we left that appointment, my husband said, if you weren't there, we would have just walked out with an autism diagnosis. I would have never pushed back because I did research. I went to the top doctor in the state to see my kid. So even if it's the best of the best, stand up and just push for further testing if you feel like your child needs it. Genetic testing can be expensive. So looking for resources in your state to help cover that if you don't have health insurance. I know there's different panels, like Lynn, I think, did a dystonia only genetic testing, and we did the full scale testing, but really kind of looking into those resources and being willing to push back when you need to.
Yeah, knowledge is power. So if there's a test that is available, you should ask for it.
Yeah. And it's scary. Yes. I also, once you get that diagnosis, they don't automatically necessarily set you up with the right team. You have to find that team for yourself or your child. And so for myself personally, I think a pediatric neurologist that specializes in movement disorders has to be your go-to person, because they're the ones that are going to understand KMT2B, and everybody else is a support. So Dr. Kerr is our lead. He knows KMT2B a lot better than anybody else, and everybody else is support for Max, and I am the middleman. So I'm just making sure we're staying all on the same page, and it's a lot of work, but it's going to be what gets my son the best treatment. So making sure you find that lead doctor that does know KMT2B, and if they don't know KMT2B or they don't have anybody, have them reach out to our clinicians that do, or someone that they know.
You find that when you're in the rare disease world, it becomes a really tight-knit community. So I'm across the continent from, well, I'm across the country, excuse me, from Elizabeth, but my clinician in Ohio is friends with Elizabeth's clinician in Arizona. And we've learned too that other clinicians that have reached back out to us, because we have emailed the gamut, they do know each other and they do talk. And so if someone in your general area isn't available, somebody else will be. So you just have to keep fighting and keep looking, because there are people that can help you with this.
We're just hoping that first we can help spread awareness of KMT2B and getting the knowledge out there. Knowledge is power. And then also to help us reach our fundraising goal of $50,000, going to our website, sharing our website with those in your community. All of that is going to help all of our kids and adults that are diagnosed with this KMT mutation.
If you reach out to us on our website, there will be a spot for you to fill out a form, and we'll have our emails from the foundation there as well. So if you fill out the form or send us an email, Elizabeth or myself will make sure we respond to each parent that does have questions. That's the one thing that we've made a promise to each other, that no other parent will have to do this alone. So we promise we will reach out to you.